I started out working, my first job coming out of school was at a video game studio, Volition in Illinois, and I spent a year there, and I ended up moving to another video game studio called Pandemic Studios, and I ended up staying there for about 8 years or so, and learned a lot over there, and I ended up moving more into cinematics and commercials, working over at Blur Studio and Psyops and Zoic Studios. Ended up working on some film stuff afterwards over at Pixmondo, and now I'm back in video games over at Electronic Arts, and it's been good jumping around to different aspects of animation, going from video games, TV, commercials, and film. And when I first started taking Mike's classes in 2002, I was working in video games, and I wanted to improve my animation and improve my video game cycles and the cinematics, the acting. I was doing a lot of cycles, and I wanted to do really get into the acting chops of animation, and so I took Mike's classes and really focused on building my mechanics of my animation, which helped me out with my video game cycles. But we also started covering more acting principles in animation, and how to get the emotion across, and how to really make it look like the character's thinking and emoting and feeling. And learning that kind of stuff really helped me move from transition between doing video game cycles and then doing acting in video game cinematics and acting in film and commercials, and all of that came when I started learning about the 2D principles of mechanics and acting, and really putting it together there and translating it over to the computer. So it definitely was an eye-opener for me. They say there's certain levels in your career you hit where your eyes kind of open up a little bit more, and the first was obviously when I went to school to learn animation, and fell in love with it there, and started working in video games right away. And I just was working for a few years completely on the computer, jumped right into the computer, even in school. Didn't do much 2D in school. They just threw us on the computer and we started going on tutorials. And I didn't actually really get into the 2D stuff until I met Mike a few years after I started my career. And that was definitely another level of animation awareness. He definitely taught me to look at animation in a different way. Being on the computer is, you learn the principles and apply them to the computer, and a lot of times you tend to let the computer do a lot of work for you, and especially in video games where it's very fast. And but when I learned the 2D classes from Mike, it was an eye-opener, because he taught me actually to think about every frame, and not just think about getting from here to there, but how a character gets from here to there, and actually thinking about and understanding breakdowns and in-betweens. I never actually even really thought about it in that term. So just doing 2D in general has actually, it's made my animation so much better on the computer. Yeah, it definitely forced me to think more about, when I was doing 2D, it forced me to think about every drawing, every frame, really. In the past I was used to just, setting my key poses and letting the computer kind of do its work, and fixing the in-betweens, when the timing was off. But in 2D you can't cheat like that. You have to think about every frame, and the planning aspect of it all actually really translated into 3D for me, because in 2D you really have to you really have to plan what you want to do, you know, with the timing and everything. And on the computer, you can just kind of go ahead and you know, set your keys and see what happens. But when you're doing 2D, you have to think about it. It makes you really try to understand why your character is going from A to B to B to C, and just what's going on with every part of the body. So after doing that, I you know, jumping on the computer, it was just felt different. I mean, I started thinking about my in-betweens more. I started letting making the computer do less of the work, and really trying to make my in-betweens and think about each frame as a drawing. And my animation just looks so much better because of it. You know, I still keep you know, keep trying to improve now, and I you know, still go back to Mike and get tips and tricks and get more education, because you know, there's so much to learn, and you know, it's what you got to do to keep improving. So. You know, in 3D, it's easy to get it's easy to set your poses, but it's also easy to get your poses very fragmented. You know, start twisting the rig up and not having a very fluid line of action and fluid silhouette. And you know, in 2D, you really have to think about that. And when you're drawing it, you want to make everything, you know, flow and make it, you know, have to make it on model. And CG, it's easy to get off model by twisting the rigs up, and just going through the practice of strong silhouettes and strong posing in 2D, you can automatically just translate over to 3D by you know, just posing it the same way and making sure you're getting the strongest type of silhouettes in 3D. It just helps. I mean, it helped me get much stronger posing on 3D stuff. So before Mike Pavani's classes, I actually never really did much thumbnailing. I just kind of jumped in and started setting keys, and that's a big thing that was taught to me in Mike's classes was you know, thumbnail, plan it out, and you know, try to just, you know, iterate on your ideas. You know, don't always go with your first idea, and try to, you know, keep trying to get stronger poses through your thumbnails and through planning. And you know, I started doing that. You know, you can't always do it in CG animation, especially with the deadlines, but you know, when I do have a chance to do it, you know, putting thumbnails, you know, doing a quick thumbnail animatic in Flipbook or something like that, and even overlaying it into Maya and seeing my thumbnails in the 3D program. It just helps. I mean, it saves you. It saves me time later on when I know that I can do my thumbnails, and that's definitely a valuable thing that I learned from Mike. So it's been. I mean, I consider myself lucky because to have someone of Mike's experience to be able to critique my animation, especially when I first started learning from him, it just blew me away. It helped me improve by leaps and bounds. You know, to just have a seasoned eye looking over your work and really critiquing you, and you know, not giving you any easy passes. You know, really, because you know, the thing is, he really wants you to improve, and you can tell. I mean, he puts in the work to critique you and really make you understand the techniques. So it's yeah, it's been good. So. You know, the thing I really liked about Mike's classes was the way that the education was broken down for me. You know, it was very clear. You know, like, you know, first you start out with your key poses, and then, you know, you move on to your breakdowns, and he made sure that I understood, you know, what key poses are, why they were so important, why they tell the story of the shot, you know, why they're the most important poses when it comes to animation. And then, you know, once you get that, you start to move on to, breakdowns, in-betweens, you know, getting from A to B, different ways to get from one pose to another pose, and different ways from getting from your, you know, your one key pose to the next key pose, and why you're doing that, you know, really understanding why you're doing it and why your character's doing it as well. The way he broke it down for me in terms of segmenting and like that, it helped me understand what was going on. And so. Well, I mean, if you haven't done 2D, let's see, if you haven't studied the principles, the animation principles in 2D yet, I highly suggest it. I mean, even me, you know, I've been doing this for 12 years, mainly on the computer. I never really did much thumbnailing, never really did much 2D in the past, and my drawing skills aren't even really all that strong, but I just improved so much taking learning it in 2D, because you really, I mean, that's where it all started, and that's the basis, the foundation. And even if you're going to be on the computer all day, just to have that 2D foundation, even though I don't work into the 2D industry, I want to learn the 2D principles, because you know, I'm a first-hand testimonial that it really helps your animation, and you know, you start to see it when you start to do the 2D stuff, and you get back on the computer, and then your animation thought process starts to feel a little differently. You start setting your poses differently. You start, you know, thinking about your in-betweens more, and not just like scrubbing through. And you know, I can't stress enough that the 2D principles would be a great thing to learn for CG. So. The future of animation, I think, is definitely bright. You know, not just here in Los Angeles or America, but all over the world. I mean, it's you know, these are definitely exciting times. You know, we have all kinds of different features and shows coming out in all different kinds of mediums. You know, and I feel like the future of animation is going to become more of a hybrid. Where CG is right now, CG animation or movies are just CG movies, and I feel like the future is just going to be, it's going to be, you know, a mix of 2D and CG and you know, real sets and, you know, stop motion backgrounds, and I feel like it's really going to mix, because animation is animation, and you know, as the CG style evolves. And you know, people in CG take more chances and try to evolve the style. It's going to become. I feel like it's going to become more of a hybrid and mixing the mediums together. So you know, whether you're doing CG or stop motion or 2D, you know, the principles, the basic animation principles are what matter. So. Cool.